So there are a few factors that affect communication when we deal with typography or packaging design. Readability, legibility, the reading time, or how long it takes someone to read the amount of text that is there, the size of it or scale on the package, shape, so the actual shapes that the letters make. And there's a lot of studies dealing with typography that imply that we don't actually read words, okay, that we read shapes of words. Okay. This is what we notice is the exterior, so the overall shape of a word. And this is how it's so easy for us to make spelling errors, or even something that has a lot of spelling errors, we can still read it. And in terms of being able to communicate or take from it a message, is because the shape of the letters and how the combination of letters put together makes a shape is something that is what we are cognizant of, maybe more so than the individual letters themselves. And then of course the style or the type style, the font, if you will, that's used. All of those things affect communication. Okay? Again, in referencing typography for packaging design, it has to be legible from a few feet away. A few feet away. That is impressive. Legible? It's pretty small. So if we were to just sort of say that out loud, if I have a 3-inch by 5-inch piece of paper and I need to communicate a message and have a lot of information on that 3-inch by 5-inch piece of paper, but it needs to be able to be communicated from a few feet away, it would almost sound impossible. But it's done. It has to be designed appropriately for the scale of the product and for the shape of the product itself. And we saw some of that when we were talking about our redesign, the restructuring of the canned food item, where as we changed the shape of the product or the shape of the package for the product, it became an issue. Well, now my label doesn't stick very well. Okay? So the type itself has to be able to interact with the shape, especially if it's an interesting shape, a circular shape. Is it more complex than a cube or a square or a cylinder? It also needs to be understood by a diverse audience and communicate truthful and credible information. There are some guiding principles for choosing your typography or the typefaces. Okay? Define the typographic personality of the product itself. And there's some couple of interesting examples in the book that we can look at in just a second. Limit your number of typefaces. We did that in our last project. We had to limit ourselves to 2 typefaces, but that did not mean we had to limit ourselves within the family. So a lot of times, if there's a lot of information to be portrayed on the package, and usually there is, you would possibly choose specifically a typeface that has a big family, so that you have a lot of freedom with how you can organize your information with the typeface, but feeling cohesive, but yet have that capability to differentiate between the family of the typeface. You're going to need to be able to create a clear hierarchy with your typography, define typographic positioning, so is it flush left, is it centered, flush right, determine alignment, etc. Vary the scale. So everything cannot be big and everything should not be small. And then choose contrast. So when you are examining the type of typefaces that you choose, you may want to choose them so that they do contrast. And then experiment with the type. And we're going to talk about a couple of these, and then the others I'm going to leave for you to review on your own. For example, experimenting with type. Okay. So defining a typographic personality. The type style will help to define a package's personality. And what does that mean?
Like this to go, like it kind of to go. It's like it always kind of
right. The letters are kind of like
flying away.
Going. Yeah. Right. Okay. So to go. It's an italicized typeface. That maybe there's some shadowing there. Maybe part of the type is even sort of stretched a little bit. Maybe one of the stems of the letters a little stretched. So it looks or it feels like it's got movement. What if something is written in an ornate script? You guys starting to think about it?
Classy.
It's classy. Maybe it's expensive. What if something is, really bold, blocky letters or bold, simple letters, all black backgrounds, it's kind of shiny.
It's like trying to be like high fashion.
Right, high fashion, okay? So we might think high fashion, we might think expensive, we might think, this is hitting a particular market, maybe this is my market, those kind of things. So absolutely, the typographic style or the typeface that you choose will define the package personality, and it will communicate to the consumer. And it will talk a lot about not just the package, but the product itself too. So limiting typefaces, we're going to talk about this just briefly, we already did. But choosing a typeface that has a pretty significant type family for a nice, consistent appearance across the package. You may also want to be quite careful about where you get your typefaces from. I know we have a habit of going online and using free typefaces, but sometimes they've been redesigned to be a knockoff, and they're not properly designed or they're poorly designed. Yes?
Are you able to put fonts, would you put in the password for us, or because when I...
There should be no password to drop fonts onto the computer to be able to...
Yeah, I was trying to put it in the wrong place.
Yeah, there's two places you can install fonts. So for your individual user, you'd actually go to your user, so packaging design, the little house, and then go to library, then go to your fonts. And you should be able to drag and drop fonts into there and access them that way.
Okay, I'll try it. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. So yeah, typefaces, you can buy them online, and you can also find free ones, or you can use the Adobe Font Family, which we have a fairly good chunk of, and then I'm also willing to share with you typefaces that I have. But sometimes when you find one online that mimics, maybe a more expensive typeface, it won't come with the whole family, or there could be characters that are missing, like numbers or punctuation, and then of course that becomes a problem. So just be aware of that as you get further along in your, not only in your career on campus, but then also when you start working with clients, you need to be careful about that. Okay. Now, talking about creating typographic hierarchy, this is going to be one of the last points that we make about typography, and the rest of it we will talk about during critiques when we actually have some more information or more visuals to look at. So organize your information visually, and be able to direct the consumer of what to get with a quick glance. And here on the next slide, I've made adjustment a little bit to scale. So just one tiny adjustment with this information in this area. So from here to here, just one tiny adjustment of scale helps you, the viewer, to quickly glance over something and say, it's important to direct the consumer what to get, and then with the smaller text, I can learn how to do that. And as consumers and as viewers, we're already trained to see things or to relate things that are grouped together. Okay? And that's Gestalt, the theory of Gestalt, where things that are close together, use of proximity, grouping them, their position, we associate them as one. You can use alignment, okay, scale or proportion, and then that generates a relationship. So weight, contrast, color, all of these things, whether we're using unity or contrast, can help to direct the consumer. And always, always, always specifically position text by how they relate or how they are not related. We also have talked about violators, that an area, usually it's an emblem or a flag or a band of color that has some text in it, and it violates the package's design. That's why it's called a violator. And usually information that's in a violator, or there's maybe a series of violators grouped together, and that can sometimes trump a hierarchy, and it can be really interesting to consider how a violator impacts typographic hierarchy of the package itself, because now we've slapped something on the design that wasn't initially intended to be part of the design. And now what does it do? All right, any questions about those couple of little topics? And the other ones are things that you should be considering, and then they'll be brought up in discussion, but experimenting with typography and things like that. Questions? Okay. How many of you have or have not had or would like to talk more about leading, what is kerning, and those kind of things? So I do have that on this PowerPoint.